Good morning, everyone. Hello. I hope you are doing fine today, and we are really glad that you join us today for this webinar. My name is Sabina Klimek, and I have got a great pleasure to moderate today's webinar. And first of all, let me introduce the event that is connected with this webinar that we are going to invite you on. The webinar and the event is organized by Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland and Ptak Warsaw Expo in cooperation with the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Technology. And many other partners joined us, and I will tell you about those partners later. But let me just tell you a few words about the Warsaw Humanitarian Expo. Warsaw Humanitarian Expo is an amazing conference that is going to take place in June. So it's like June 11, June 13, you have to be there with us. There is the website where you can figure out and find out some more information about this Warsaw Humanitarian Expo. So just have a look at our website, humanitarianexpo.com. And location, it's Ptak Warsaw Expo, very close to the city center of Warsaw. It's just like 15 minutes, very good location, very well connected. So it's like a really beautiful area for the conferences and for the exhibitions. And that's why we are recommending to join us very much. So why we decided to do this Warsaw Humanitarian Expo and to do this conference? Like, first of all, it's very important for us to increase the involvement of the business in the humanitarian actions worldwide. And we are talking mostly about Polish and European businesses, because still we are not presented enough in all those actions. And there are many countries much more involved than actually Europe. That's why we are doing these actions in order to recommend, show the way, introduce, and just to teach the companies how to be active in this humanitarian, worldwide and humanitarian actions. And who will attend and why attend this show? Like, first of all, this is the only fair like this in Central and Eastern Europe. So it's very unique event. Other events are usually based in New York, and you know, it's far away, so it's much closer to be in Poland, and it's much better to be and visit Poland this time. And we are presenting like very comprehensive offer from exhibitors from Poland and from abroad, mostly from Europe. If you join this conference and if you join all exhibition, you will have the opportunity for business-to-business meetings, for business-to-government meetings with people who are actually responsible for purchasing for products and for budgets of all these international organizations. And also, you will have exactly all the knowledge and know-how and business information that you need in order to be active in this market and environment of international trade in humanitarian sector. This is international conference, and I just wanted to tell you that actually all people that you would like to meet that are responsible for UN tenders, for other organization tenders, will be there, and this is actually the only opportunity to just meet all those people, talk to them, exchange the information and learn, because this is like the most important mission of this conference, to learn for the companies. And what is the structure? The structure consists of 4 pillars. So there is a conference, and there is Warsaw Procurement Forum, where exactly you will learn how to participate in tenders and how it works, how all the system works, how to register, how to be active, and what kind of processes are important there. And the third part is Expo and Fair. So you can have your own booth. You can just present your products. If you are a company that would like to present the products and services, you are able to buy the space and have your own booth at the Expo. And it will be this special humanitarian city, and it will be like platform for meetings, debates, and events where NGOs and businesses will just meet with each other. It will be opportunity to talk, to meet to people, and just to ask all the questions, and you will get all answers that that are important for you. And those are the sectors, and this is how the expo is divided. There are 6 sectors. You can see that this is logistics and communication, medical equipment, shelters, security, food, and agencies. So we are sure that everybody will find something for its company. So you can just figure out that actually all fields and all kind of products are represented. And those are the partners of Warsaw Humanitarian Expo. We received the honorary patronage of the President of Republic of Poland, Mr. Andrzej Duda, and those are our international partners: Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, Ukraine, Greece, and Romania. And we are working with Warsaw Ptak Expo, and also cooperating with many other Polish ministries, academias, and NGOs, and also companies. And this is how the expo area looks like. This is Warsaw na Darzyn. This is exactly where this place will, this is exactly how it looks like. And this is really great, spacious, and very interesting exhibition area that is very, very close to Warsaw. So it's not a problem to join us, and we hope that you will join us on this conference. And now I would like to give the floor to our panelists. We are very happy that today with us there is Miguel Alvarez, and Miguel is an expert for United Nations. He's working there for many years, and actually he's the one who knows exactly how to do tenders, how the process looks like. So he's the best person that could present this topic today to us. And moreover, Miguel will join us in Warsaw for the conference. So we are very happy to have him on board, and we are very happy that today he found some time to do the presentation for us. So Miguel, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Sabina. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, very well. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the conference today. We're very happy to have this opportunity to present you with some facts about our procurement processes and how we do business. And I'm going to try also to give you a few tips on how to win a tender and how to be successful with a UN procurement system. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Miguel Alvarez, and I am the chief of the Operational Sustainment and Healthcare section in the Procurement Division in New York. So basically, we have a budget of around $1 billion a year to buy all the food that is consumed daily by more than 100,000 blue helmets, peacekeepers that are on the field in different missions, like in the Central African Republic, in Mali, in Sudan, in Congo, etc. So we buy all the food and all the logistic services associated with the food for all those peacekeepers. We also buy all the fuel that is being consumed by the United Nations worldwide here from New York. That is an expenditure of over $400 million a year. We'll go into the details later. And we also are responsible in my section to buy all the healthcare products, including health services, including consumables, including equipment, etc., that is later on deployed into the field. So that is as a means of introduction of myself and what my role is in the procurement division in New York. So let me, we have in total 1 hour, so I have like 40 minutes left. So let me go through the presentation, and then I suppose that we can get some questions if you want to answer any through the tool. And Sabina, you may have to help me with that. Okay. But to start, let me just give you a few figures that will put the UN system procurement volume in perspective. In the slide that I just showed you, it shows the trend from 2011 to 2017. 2018 figures are almost out, and they're very similar to what you see here. So basically, you see an upward trend. In total, in the UN system, we buy around $18 billion of goods and services per year. The split is more or less 50-50, as you can see. So in total, in the UN system, you can see that it is a very interesting market. We do buy quite a lot of both goods and services. When people think of the UN, they usually think of the political talks in the Security Council, or the actions being taken worldwide on the political level, or the peacekeeping efforts. One doesn't really think of the UN as an interesting business partner or an interesting customer to sell goods and services for, but that's actually also what we are. So and that slide shows very well our buying power. When it comes to the procurement division of the UN, out of those $18 million, we are responsible for about $3 billion. Okay. So as you can see, and basically the split between goods and services is also 50-50. Okay. So you can see that other than us here in the United Nations, in the Secretariat in New York, there are many other entities worldwide that are also buying a lot of goods and services. So who are those entities? Well, you know them very well. UNICEF, for one, is usually number one. They usually buy around $3.2 or so billion a year, mostly in medicine, vaccines, etc. So everybody knows UNICEF. Also, the World Food Programs, WFP, is the organization of the UN that is responsible for delivering food to these disadvantaged places worldwide. They are also a very important customer. Ourselves in the Secretariat in New York, we are responsible not only for the needs of New York, but also of the peacekeeping missions, as I just told you, in places like Mali, like Congo, like Somalia. So those are what those $3 billion are for. And also you have the UN Development Program, UNDP, and UNHCR, the High Commissioner for Refugees, that are very important customers. So those 5 organizations I just mentioned account for the bulk of the $18 billion that I'm showing here. Okay, and out of these, $3 billion correspond to us, and as I was explaining before, around $1 billion of these 3 are in my section. Okay. So these are the major items that are procured by the UN procurement system. And by the way, before I get to that, I see that I have a question saying, please send us your presentation. Thank you. I have no problem doing that, and hopefully Sabina will help disseminate this presentation with all the participants in this seminar. So no problem about that. The major items procured by the UN procurement system are those that you can see in this slide for both goods and services. So food, I was speaking about food before. The 2 main entities that buy food are the World Food Program and ourselves here. Obviously, very different type of food. The World Food Program usually buys, large quantities of grains, rice, wheat, to distribute to general population, whereas we buy a lot of food to give to the peacekeepers. So it's usually prepared food, etc. Pharmaceutical supplies. Also, UNICEF is a big buyer of these kind of supplies to vaccinate children all over the world. Vehicles. Vehicles is a very interesting commodity because we actually buy it from here, from New York, for the whole UN system. And this is kind of a pilot project that we did a couple of years ago, where all the UN organizations came together, and we agreed on, on the specifications of the vehicles that we want to buy all over the world. So we went out on a tender from here, from New York, and we established a few contracts, and now every UN organization is basically using the same contracts and using the same vehicles. Computers and software, obviously, we do have an IT section here, which is very important, and we do have a lot of standardization going on, because obviously we don't want to have many different types of software and computers that we need to service, etc. Shelter and housing is a very important commodity, not only for us when we're trying to establish new missions, which are usually mobile and are usually in hard places, but also for other organizations like the UNHCR, for the refugee camps, UNDP, etc., etc. Telecommunications equipment, again, really important for us when we get to a new place, to be independent when when we're trying to communicate with New York or with other places in the world. So we need to rely on our own equipment, laboratory equipment, chemicals. That relates basically to fuel. It's a little known fact that the UN has more planes in operation than the British Airways. So we do run a very complex and very extensive network of aircraft services, basically in Africa, where the road infrastructure in some cases is not optimal for us to meet our mandate. So of course, all those planes need to be refueled, and also all the vehicles are on the ground. So we do spend quite a lot in fuel, building materials, and in the area of services, as I said before, so we're chartering a number of planes. So air charter services is actually our first line of spend in the Secretariat. Safety and security services for our missions, engineering, construction, and then consultancies, freight forwarding, of course, to take all the goods that we buy worldwide to many places, including some places that are not easy to reach, and then printing services and other consultancies, and of course telecommunication services such as internet, cell phones, etc. Dedicated lines, etc. So these are basically the major items that we are procuring right now. I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but we do have a mobile app for Apple and Android. And this mobile app really provides a lot of information with regards to the new awards that are going to be coming up in the future. It also provides information about our rules and regulations, etc. So I encourage you to download it. It's very good. You also have our website, which can be accessed from the general United Nations website, as well as UNGM. But I will talk about that a little bit later on. So basically, that was a little bit as a means of introduction of what we're talking about here. So basically, the main points would be that the UN is a very interesting customer. We do buy quite a lot. There are many organizations that belong to the UN system, including ourselves, and UNICEF, WFP, UNDP, UNHCR, and each of them have their own authority to conduct their own procurement. They have their own needs, which are different with respect to their mandate, and therefore it is this complex system that is very interesting, but at the same time you need to learn to navigate. Okay, so the second part of the presentation is how to learn to navigate this system. So how to find out about our tenders, how to respond to the tenders, etc., etc. And for that, I'm going to give you very specific advice, 10 tips that hopefully you will be able to use to successfully navigate the system. Okay. So the first tip would be to register at www.ungm.org. So this is one email address that you should really all write down. I would say it's the main email address, it's the main website that you should be walking out from here knowing. www.ungm.org. And this is what we call the United Nations General Marketplace. And it has all sorts of information that is really interesting. I'm trying to log into the website right now and show it to you in the screen. So I hope that you can see it. So it's really a very interesting. It's really a very interesting website, and you will see that you have both business opportunities, which is the area that I am highlighting right now. You also have login and new registrations. So this is actually the first thing that you should be doing. You have a service, which is the Tender Alert service. You have information about our awards. You also have general information about UN procurement. So there's tons of information here that you should be aware of. So this is actually the go-to place if you try to do procurement or if you try to sell goods and services with the UN. So the first thing that you need to do is to register with the UN. And you obviously, maybe you have an account already, but if you don't, you come here with to the UN registration, and this is where you can start clicking and you can register your company. So the registration, as you can see here in the screen, is actually quite easy to start with. It just asks you to submit a few details, basic company details, company director details, user account creation, etc. So as you can see, it's pretty easy, and that is to get to what we call the basic level. So the basic level is just going to be fill out that screen that I just showed you, and you're automatically at the basic level. It is important that you do that because being at the basic level and having an account in UNGM is the first step in order for us to, to even be able to invite you to a solicitation. Okay, so so I would say do that as soon as you can. Subsequently, you will find that there are two higher level of registrations with UNGM. So you can be at basic level, or you can be at level 1, or you can be at level 2. And depending the amount of the award that you are interested in getting, then you should consider registering at level 1 or at level 2. So basically, basic gives you the option of getting awards up to $40,000, so fairly low. Level 1 gives you the option of awards of up to $500,000, and level 2 gives you the option of awards for any amount. And the difference between level 1 and level 2 is basically the documentation that you have to upload into UNGM. So for level 1, I think that you just need 3 letters of reference from customers, and your certificate of incorporation. And for level 2, on top of that, you will need 3 years of audited financial statements. Okay, but the basic level is really easy, as you just saw. It's just a 5-minute introduction of data into the tool, so that's going to take no time. And again, it's really important that you register so you are in our radar. Okay, so that was the first tip. The second tip to be into our system would be to keep abreast of the expressions of interest, the EOIs, okay, what we call EOIs. So basically the way that our tender process works is whenever we have a requirement, we are mandated by our rules and regulations to advertise the requirement and tell the markets, hey, we need to buy, let's say, food for the Central African Republic. You know, are you maybe interested in selling this food for us? And for that, we publish an expression of interest. An expression of interest is really easy to fill out. This would be basically the form that you have to fill out. So as you can see, it's really easy. You just need to put your UNGM vendor ID number, and that's why you need an account, okay? And then a little bit of information again, and you can see that it is really easy to fill out and just send to the procurement officer that might be in charge of this commodity, okay? And in fact, you can now also do it online as well. So you don't even need to send this by email, or, you know, in former times it was also by fax. So it's all really easy. So all these expressions of interest, again, you can find them in UNGM. Okay, so let me show you again on the actual website. I'm here online. So we came here before to log in and new registrations. Let's go now to business opportunities. And if you see here, search tender notices, you can actually search by title, by description, reference, or the the dates. But you can see here the different expressions of interest. So for example, we have one here which is for supply and delivery of various materials, accessories, and equipment to Brindisi and Italy, or heavy machinery for UNAMA offices in Kabul, Afghanistan. So these two would be for us, for the UN Secretariat. We have also tenders for other UN organizations like FAO. Here is different materials to be delivered in Kinshasa. This one would be for FAO as well. Here's one for UNOPS. This actually is an RFI, so this is just a request for information. But for example, here they're requesting consultancy services to develop administrative finance and logistics policies for Afghanistan. So so you can see the different open opportunities to express interest that there are right now. Here are the different organizations. This is for UNDP, IAEI, Women, UNESCO, etc. So you see the different opportunities that are right now open. It really takes very little time to respond to any of this. If you click on it, you have a more detailed description here. You can express interest just by clicking this button and filling out some data. You can also go to the link and open the actual document here, in which you see basically what they are requesting. So in this case, they just want to lease some vehicles as and when required. These are the list of vehicles that need to be in Kabul. So you can see it's really easy, and if you have the capability to deliver these services to UNAMA, then you would just have to fill out this form and send it to these two addresses, right? To this colleague of mine, somebody called Hussein, who works in Kabul, and to the general UNAMA, into the general UNAMA list. You have to do this before the 2nd of May of 2019. And then this is like raising your flag. This is just like saying to UNAMA in this case, hey, I'm interested. I think I could deliver these services. There is obviously no compromise. This is just an expression of interest. There is no compromise to do it, but it is just, you know, raising your flag and saying, hey, I could potentially be interested. So why is this important? This is important because many of our solicitations are not public. You will not find them on the internet. So you need to be invited to the solicitation. So in that respect, the procurement officer of the solicitation will be putting together a list of invitees. By you expressing interest, that is a really strong indication to the procurement officer that he should invite you to the solicitation. Okay, so really important to raise your flag and request to be invited. Especially you've seen that we have a very distributed procurement system. I am buying things here in New York, but UNICEF is buying many things in Copenhagen. The missions are buying things themselves. We have 4 offices away from headquarters in Geneva, in Vienna, in Nairobi, in Santiago. So there are procurement officers everywhere, really. And you know, just because maybe you know me or you think that I know you, and you should not rely on that to be invited to a solicitation, because maybe that solicitation is being conducted by my colleague in Geneva. So it is really good. It's a very good tip to keep track of the expressions of interest that are published, and to express interest if you think that your company could deliver these services. So I would encourage you to have somebody in your company take a look every week at UNGM. Take a look if there are any new expressions of interest that might be of your interest. Usually EOIs are out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, so you don't need to be checking the website every 5 minutes. But if you have somebody in the company checking the website every week, I think that is a really good tip. UNGM also has a tender alert system. That is the only feature in UNGM that is actually not free of charge. Everything else is free of charge. But if you come to UNGM, again, you will find here the tender alert service. You can actually subscribe that you will get an email whenever a tender in a certain area comes up. Okay, again, it's not free. It's the only thing that is not free. All the information is available publicly, so you don't need to pay for this. This is an extra service that UNGM can provide to send you an email, you know, for your comfort, or you know, or for your tracking. So you see the benefits here: never miss a tender, vision policy in UNGM. But you can also have somebody in your company just checking the information as it appears here. It's actually the same information. It's just you know, it's just more comfortable to get an email. Okay, so this is the second tip. I hope it's clear. The third tip is to win to know the winning strategy for each solicitation instrument. Okay, this is actually really important, and it's not very well known. So let me explain it to you in detail. So as I said, our solicitations are usually not public. You cannot find them on the internet. You need to be invited. So let's suppose that you reply to the EOI, the procurement officer got the reply to your interest, and he decided to invite you to the solicitation, which he did, and now you received the solicitation documents with all the details of what we need, the technical specification, the commercial schedules, etc., etc. Okay. So what you should know is that we have mainly three different types of solicitation instruments, and the way that they work is actually very, very different. Okay, first of all, we have the request for quotation, which is at the bottom of your screen, RFQ. Request for quotation is only for requirements below $40,000, okay? So this is what we call an informal procurement process because it's supposed to go quick, okay? Basically, what we're worried about the request for quotation is that we do things quickly, you know, it's for small things, so we don't want to spend a lot of time there, and you're probably not very interested in the RFQs either because, you know, all that it's going to give you is like an award for delivery of something for $20,000, etc. So beyond that, so for more interesting contracts, we have two solicitation instruments, which are the ones that are in the table. The first one is invitation to bid, and the second one is request for proposal. And both are very different. So when you receive our solicitation, you're gonna see immediately if it is an ITB or an RFP. Even in the title, even in the number, it's gonna say ITB / whatever or RFP / whatever. Okay, and in the title it will say invitation to bid for etc., or request for proposal for etc. Okay. So this may seem like a technicality, but it's actually really, really important because it's going to influence the way that we evaluate and we award the final contract. So on an invitation to bid, we use it when the requirements are perfectly defined. Okay, and this is the main difference with the request for proposal. So the requirements are perfectly defined. Okay, so let's imagine that I am trying to establish a contract for the provision of photocopy paper for the UN headquarters here in New York. You know, we are a bunch of people here in New York. We consume a lot of paper, unfortunately. So this is going to be, let's say, a $2 million contract for the next 5 years. For the delivery of paper in New York. Okay, the good thing about paper is that I can define it very well. You know, it's very easy. I want stacks of 100 sheets, and they need to be this size, and they need to have this weight, and they need to be this color. So the requirement can be perfectly defined. Okay, I can really define it very well. That means that the way that the technical requirements are going to look like is like a pass-fail matrix, okay? So for the paper, if your paper is, let's say, between 100 and 120 grams per square meter, then that will be a pass. And if it's lighter than that, it will be a fail or heavier. So since the requirements are perfectly defined, I can do the technical evaluation on a pass-fail basis because I know exactly what I want to buy. So I don't want paper that is yellow, or I don't want paper that is too light. Okay, so I can determine who is compliant with my requirement on a pass-fail basis, and then what I'm going to do is for the award, I am going to go to the lowest cost. So the philosophy is, if I know exactly what I want to buy, because I can define the requirement perfectly, why would I spend more money on it? I will just buy the cheapest that I can get that meets all the requirements. Okay. So that's a little bit the philosophy behind an invitation to bid. Okay. So what do you have to do to reply and be successful if you see that our solicitation is an ITV? What you have to do is deliver according to the requirement while not over specifying. Okay. So in the case of the paper, let's imagine that you have two types of paper, and both types of paper meet the requirement, everything that I wanted. One is a little bit more expensive because it's a little bit heavier, let's say, you know. So my advice in the case of an ITV is do not offer the heavier one, you know. As long as it meets the requirement, offer whatever is the cheapest, because you know that you will have another supplier that will offer something cheaper that can meet the requirement. And the way that we are going to decide to make the award is technically compliant, lowest cost. Okay. So again, the strategy for an ITV is just look at the requirements, make sure that you meet all the specifications, and then find a product within your catalog that is the lowest cost possible. The way we define best value for money is lowest cost because we know exactly what we want. So as long as we get it, we just want the cheapest. Okay. Request for proposal, RFP, is very different. In an RFP, we are looking for something that is a complex requirement. So to give you an example, let's say that we're looking for the distribution of food in Mali, right? So we are not exactly specifying, like in the case of the paper, we're just telling you what we want. And we're asking for your expertise to formulate a complex proposal, okay? And when we get the proposal, we're gonna look at it, and it's not as easy as to say pass, fail, okay? There might be some suppliers that have excellent food, but they don't really have good trucks to distribute the food in Mali, or you know, their proposal for warehouses to keep the stocks, it's not really comprehensive, or we don't feel comfortable with their quality assurance processes. Okay, we may have another supplier that we don't like the food items so much, but they do have very good quality assurance program. So as you can see, it's not as easy as to say pass, fail. It's more, it's more detailed. There are many more gray areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a comprehensive evaluation based on a points matrix. Okay. And what we will base our final award is what we call qualified most responsive. So basically it means that we are willing to pay a little bit more for solutions that are better. A better solution, it may be worth to pay more. We're not automatically going to go to the lowest cost. We may have, an acceptable solution for an X amount of money, but we may have a much better solution that gives us much more security, that that we feel more comfortable with, that has extra features, and we are willing to pay more for that. Okay, so what is the winning strategy for an RFP? This is really much more complicated than the ITV. The winning strategy is to exceed the expectations in your response while keeping the technical requirement while keeping a low cost. So here it is more about striking the right balance between having a really good solution and a really good cost proposition. Okay, so it's a little bit more complicated, but request for proposal is not for the lowest cost. Okay. So going back to the tip, know the winning strategy for each solicitation instrument, because as you can see, the way that you need to reply to an ITV and the way that you need to reply to an RFP is very different. Okay. On the fourth thing that I wanted to say is you need to select the right tender. So usually in our tenders, we do have what we call mandatory requirements. The first thing, when you get invited to a tender, you get the solicitation documents, then you see if it's an ITV or an RFP. What I would advise you to do is to take a look very quickly at the mandatory requirements, because mandatory requirement in our procurement language, it means that there are things we cannot live without. Okay, so to give you an example, in our requirements for food delivery, our mandatory requirement is that your company has a food safety certification. So if your company does not have a food safety certification, we don't even want to do business with you for this, because we feel it is so important for us that even if you had the best cost, even if you had the most compelling solution, that is just something that we're not able to deal without. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to spend a lot of time preparing a tender, which can be hundreds and hundreds of pages. You don't want to commit yourself to having a lot of resources dedicated to a tender when, if you don't meet the mandatory requirement, we're going to disqualify you after 5 minutes. Okay. So for that, I would advise you to really take a look at the mandatory requirements and really think if that is the right tender for your company. So for example, if the tender is asking for 5 years of experience in something, and and it is something that you have never really done, you cannot demonstrate any experience, then really it might not be the right, tender for your company. So why dedicate the resources to respond to the tender, if the chances are very slim? Anyway, select the right tender. Really, I would think really, really important step once that you receive the solicitation documents. Then another thing that is important is to identify the evaluation criteria. As I said before, especially for ITVs, especially for RFPs, we're going to have a points matrix. Our solicitation documents are really going to tell you, okay, this is what we're going to evaluate. So what you can imagine is that behind each of those criteria, there's going to be a matrix with number of points, etc. So you really want to identify what those criteria are in order to respond to them, trying to exceed expectations, as I said before, because that is what will determine how we are evaluating your technical proposal. In the case of ITVs, you also want to identify very clearly which are the mandatory criteria that you need to meet in order to be considered technically compliant, and then go to the second round of the commercial evaluation. So when you are responding to our tenders, our advice is, rather than sending a brochure or something that is standard, be precise. Explain to us what you can do for the UN, why we should select you, why your offer is better than your competitors, etc., etc. It's also very important for us that you take a look at the commercial terms. We usually require a bid bond. We usually require a performance security if we enter into a contract. In some cases, that performance security can be quite elevated, depending on the services that we're talking about. So all of this information, including in many cases the model contracts, are included in the solicitation documents. So in order to price your solution right and make sure that you're going to have a profit and make sure that you're comfortable, you should really study the commercial terms. Also, let me just point out, in many cases, we require prices to be fixed for some time. So you need to go to all those details that are usually contained in the solicitation documents. You also need to be very mindful of all the little things in the solicitation, like, for example, when is the closing date? We cannot accept bids that are late. So you really want to make sure that you submit your bid in time and not late. We also have a 2-envelope system where we ask you to put the financial proposal in different envelope, the technical proposal. So we have different colleagues looking at both. So if you don't respect that, then we're very likely going to eliminate your submission. So all of these details are within the solicitation documents, and we ask you to be very mindful. So once you do all of this, you study the terms, you're respecting the deadline, you're maximizing your competitive advantage, you put together your bid, you send it in accordance with the procedures that are detailed in the solicitation documents. And then what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate it based on that evaluation matrix or based on the pass-fail criteria, and we're going to follow the we're going to follow the procedure of an ITB or an RFP to determine which is the company that gives us the best value for money. And in the supposition that it is not you that we are going to call, because we determined that there was another company that in this case had a better value, then what you can also do is you can ask for a debrief. You can call us, or you can request that we call you, and we will try to explain to you why we didn't select your bid, your response to the solicitation, why we thought that it was not in our interest to accept your bid. We'll try to be as transparent as possible so you can do better next time, and that's in everybody's benefit. It's more transparency, and at the same time, it's more it's more competition for future bids. Finally, let me just say that in my experience, companies that are trying to do business with the UN may not be successful the first time they bid. Sometimes it happens, but it's rare. So a little bit of perseverance is necessary to do business with us. So I hope that you can find this patience within yourselves. And that is basically my presentation. It's 2 minutes before 10 a.m., 4 p.m. in Europe. So thank you very much. I hope the main points of the presentation were clear. If I have to summarize, the tender process and the tips for you, the first one would be please register in UNGM. The second one would be please keep abreast of the expressions of interest. And the third one is, please reply to our solicitations and good luck. So if you have any questions at this point, I'll be very happy to answer them.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you very much. That was very interesting and very informative. And I already see that there is questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got any questions, please, you can just write down, and there is a chat box where you can write down your questions, and I will see that, and I will ask Miguel. And the first question that appears is, what is the percentage of IT procurement? Do you have this information? What is the percentage of IT procurement?
So give me a second, but I would.
Or more or less, you can just say a few words about IT procurement.
I can. I'm just checking the figures. So last year in New York, in the UN Secretariat, so out of the $3 billion in IT procurement, we bought 369 million. So it would be, around 15%, something like that. Okay.
Well, so that is quite a number. It's not bad, I would say. So are there any other questions or anything that you would like to still know? That's the only opportunity to ask. Yes, there's another question. In the first level of registration, company name, what is the license number?
Okay, that is a really specific question. I think that you should maybe send that question in writing to our colleagues in vendor registration, because I'm not entirely sure what the license number would be.
Mm-hmm. So maybe can you give the details where they can find this information, or to whom to write those questions? Is there any department, division where they can just write those questions?
Yeah, they can write those questions, and it should be, if you go to UNGM, you should get an email where you can ask those questions. But in any case, Sabina, what I can do is I can facilitate the email to you after the conference, and then you can give it to the
yes. Okay, so let's do this way, that I will send those information that you will give to me to all participants. So yes, we will send you the email address to the right person that can answer your questions. Okay. Are there any other questions, or if there are no more questions, that's the last chance to ask the questions to our expert. But our expert, Miguel Alvarez, will be with us in Warsaw for Warsaw Procurement Forum and Warsaw Humanitarian Forum. So we are very happy and waiting for you to join us. And just please have a look at the website, humanitarianexpo.com. And please see the website of Warsaw Humanitarian Expo. And we really hope that you will find this event interesting, and we really hope that you will join us for conference, for exhibitions. There are still places available, and we are looking for as many companies as possible, especially for companies with different background, with different products that they are producing. And we really are waiting for you, because we hope that Polish companies and European companies will be more and more present on this humanitarian market. And that's why the humanitarianexpo.com, this is the website that you should visit just after our webinar. Miguel, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your time. And I'm really happy that we will see each other soon in Warsaw. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for participation in our webinar. After webinar, you will get this webinar recorded, and you will get an email from us with all details, and also the link to this webinar. You will be able to download it and listen to it again. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.